going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Revival of the Fittest. Last week you guys saw me go over the plans I have to rebuild War Rig. I went over the frame, I went over all the parts I'm going to use, I went over what happened to the old machine. You guys saw all the cracks in the frame, things like that. Well, this week we're going to crack into the engine. This engine has lived a very hard life, but it's time to finally rebuild the heart of the beast and get a lot of parts sent out because it's going to take some time to build some of these things. Real quick, summarize what's done to this. This was a 13.5:1 compression CP piston, I'm pretty sure. Stage 2 hot cam. It's an 08 style TRX cam. I'll explain that in a little bit. It's a Cylinder Works jug, porting done by Oregon Coast Power Sports. And the carburetor was also bored and done by Jeff. I'm using that carb actually on another machine right now, but we got a Hinson full bulletproof clutch kit in here. The transmission is stock. The crank is a stock crank with a Carrillo rod on it actually, and everything else is pretty much stock throughout the bottom end, you know, OEM bearings, all the things like that. But what we're going to do today is we're going to rip this thing down and we're going to go through it and see what kind of damage is done over a few years of racing, because this thing has definitely seen a lot of racing and a lot of ride time. So let's dive right into it, start cracking this thing open and see what we got. You guys are just going to have to ignore the fan in the background because it's summer and it's hot. Deal with it.
Just deal with it.
Now, clearly I've had some things already ripped off of here. Like I said, I went through this engine before and pulled parts that I needed to build other machines. One of them being Randy Savage, the other one being Cyborg, the amputee machine. But I went through, made sure I had good stators. I have plenty of those now, and I got a good look at the inside of this engine a little bit anyway. But other than those few things that you see missing, everything else is still complete the way I pulled it out of the rig. Another thing I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna try to keep time, see how long this actually takes me to break down. I'm not gonna be going crazy trying to beat a time, but I just want to kind of see what it generally takes me to break down one of these Honda engines, since I've done, I don't know, about 7 of them. So let's go ahead and start. There we go. First thing, grab these valve cover bolts, break them loose. And of course one is an odd size because I had to fix that one. Off to a great start. It's an 11 mil. That's probably all I had laying around. Those of you who know that these rear valve cover bolts are prone to stripping because a lot of people over tighten them, and it's just the cam tower holding it, and it's a small 6mm bolt hole, but it's aluminum, so it gets stripped pretty easy. And these forward bolts are prone to snapping off in the head. Ask me how I know that. And I always like to bust these by hand because I don't want to hit it with the impact too hard. Since everything is aluminum, it'll strip. These actually look pretty good. I think I replaced one of these before putting it back together the last time. Now this engine is the OG engine that came in it, minus some of the center cases here, because I actually blew it up in 2021 racing at Primm, Nevada in Works. Here's the bore for the decompression assembly for the 04 to 2007 TRX450s. This is a 2008 motor, so the difference is the cam decompression is actually right here. It's this little button. There's a counterweight and everything out here that swings open, and you can see as I move it, once the cam starts spinning, it pops that back in. Decompression no longer running, so now you're running out the compression of the engine. So that's the 08 style. The 06 style, or the 04 to 07 I should call it, is actually this. It has this entire assembly hanging off the side of it right here, and this roller wheel, and the decompression happens out here. There's a little bar that comes by. See that little spring and bar? That hits this wheel and moves that arm to decompress the motor. So I'd actually like to go back to this style because I can actually adjust the decompression on it, versus this is kind of just a set thing and that's what you get. You can change it slightly by maybe welding or getting a new tab or something like that, or new button, but I don't know. I've heard these are a little more reliable, but I really like the adjustability of that one. So let's keep digging. These are just some 10 mils and they're only torqued to 10 foot-pounds, so they're really not much. But these just hold down the cam tower. And I already have the decompression, or the cam chain tensioner out. I've already pulled that off. so I don't got to worry about the cam chain being super tight right now. But so far, everything looks like good, clean oil up here. I don't have anything black hanging around. This motor was a good running motor, or engine, for those of you who are going to be picky. So it was running really well when I, shut it off. I just noticed the cracks in the frame, and basically this thing sat. It was getting louder for sure, so it was going to need a rebuild eventually, but figured I'd rather just shut her down and let it sit while I build the other engines anyway. So now, before I go nuts yanking all this out, even though I've loosened these up, I've got to get these two bolts out and get the cam gear off. These are just little M6 bolts. They're Allen heads, and they're torqued down to like 14 foot-pounds. So I just got to make sure I bust those free so I can pop this off real quick. But you guys can see that entire decompression arm, that weight on there. Once it starts spinning, that weight slides out and then pulls that little cam button in. There we go. While I'm breaking this thing down, I'm going to do my best to keep everything organized. So basically, as it comes off, it gets laid out kind of in order as I go this way, and then lay the whole thing out. Minus any tools I got to move around. There we go. That's actually in really good shape still. I'm telling you, that Blood Lubes does a really good job of keeping everything clean and keeping it from getting too abrasive or worn down. I can go ahead and drop that cam chain because I'm going to get more, but check this out. Here's that little arm that runs in there and hits that little cam button in the 08 style. So it's hollow all the way through there. Now I can basically yank all this off and keep going. Now these in particular actually have a spot because the rear is shorter than the front. I don't know if you guys can see that, but the rear bolts are shorter than the front bolts in the cam tower, so don't get those mixed up. I just lay them out like that. Front stay in front, rear stay in rear. It kind of helps me keep track. Now this part, as you pull this off, oh good, all right, the shims are still in there. So the shim stayed in the shim buckets, which is good. I can see what sizes I had for the intake, and then I could see what size I had for the exhaust valves. Now these are 14 mil and these are torqued to 40 foot-pounds, so I'm gonna have to put some oomph into it, and I'm gonna have to hang on to it. There's one. Got two loose. What I really need is a good engine stand, but I kind of like these blocks. I'll get there someday. For now, this works. Okay. There we go. All right, got those four loose. Now, get the little impact on it. Now, since I'm tearing it down, I'm really not worried about washers and nuts, falling down the cam chain channel, but you definitely want to watch that when you're putting it together. I've dropped a shim or two down there near the flywheel, and that sucks. Got to yank it apart. Probably need a fresh gasket because once you torque something down, the gasket is no good anymore. All right, let's get the magnet on these too. That makes it easier. Get this coolant hose off of here. You have the little 8 mils on the side. All these really do is hold the head and the cylinder in place before you start torquing everything down. It kind of lines everything and keeps it tight. All right, let's move my drink. Oh, that came out nicely. All right, straight up. Okay. Oh, top of that piston was, I shouldn't say charred, but it's definitely chunky. Is that a good word for that? I was running this thing a little bit rich, so. You'll see there's a lot of deposit left on top of that piston. And there's what the underside looks like. Still got the spark plug in there. Doesn't look terrible, but it's definitely time to service this thing. You can scrape a lot of that soot off there. It's running really rich. And I run 110, Sonico 110. It's very leaded. It's okay. Nothing that Jeff can't fix up there. Pull the dowels. Make sure I still have those. Oh, they came out nice and clean. Head gasket. Really looks all right. Doesn't look like it got blown out or anything. It's junk anyway. Let's pull the cam chain guide. This is where we'll really see if it got chewed up or anything, or if it's reusable, which is what I would like. Oh man, I hope you guys can see that, but look at all the cross hatching in there. This cylinder is still really good. And I don't see any skirt marks in there other than way down at the bottom. You guys could probably see down at the very bottom there's like a line. That's actually where the side of the piston comes down and doesn't actually make contact with the cylinder, so it's all still fresh down there, but that still looks really good. In fact, I could probably just clean that up and we can reuse this cylinder. That thing is in really good shape. Take the base gasket. I gotta get my little coolant bypass out of there. And just normal wear and tear on your base gasket. Still unusable. Now what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to take this side cover off because there's a bunch of gears and things in there that I need to put a jammer in to get the rest of this apart, because I gotta get the flywheel off, I gotta get the main bolt off of the crank. That's 80 foot-pounds. This over here is, I think, 40 foot-pounds or 54 foot-pounds, something like that. Anyway, a lot of torqued stuff that I gotta zip off here. Oh yeah, those have been in there for a minute. That kicker assembly is kind of tight too. There we go. There's your inner workings. And yes, this was an E-start. You guys can see there's a relief right there. It started life as an E-start. I used that in conjunction with a kickstart. I actually added this so I'd have a kicker backup. I think I got this from JSD Machine Works, but I basically want to convert everything over to kickstart because I like the simplicity of kickstart. I know there's extra gears and things back here, but it eliminates all of this stuff. This little gear right here, which is a pain. This thing will come loose all the time, but this is like your little reducer gear here, and that's just press fit. So this thing comes loose all the time. In fact, a lot of people recommend you just weld it together and then it free spins anyway. So, but I like getting rid of that. All that other stuff, because it also gets rid of spinning mass. It kind of lightens everything up and it takes out the starter clutch, which is in here. So you've got a clutch pack that sits behind these gears, and that's what engages with your starter and gets the crank going, and then it free spins the other way. Well, that fails a lot as well, and you have to replace that. I would rather just put the little steel sleeve in there. It's a real small steel sleeve, so I could just go kicker only. So I'm gonna go kicker only with this engine, which, fun fact, you could get a kicker option all the way up until 2009. So that was something pretty cool. This just didn't come with it, so I converted it back. The 06 and up kickers have a longer kicker shaft than the 05s. Found that out because I bought an 05 thinking I could just stick it straight in. Does not work. Different cases. I have a little Motion Raceworks gear jammer, but as you can see, it has been royally effed. The magnet fell out one day while I was doing something and it was stuck to a gear and snapped the nose of it off, but works enough for now. So we're gonna start busting this thing loose. Woo, Gently. There we go. Got it. And then this guy requires a special little key, which I think I got at Motorsport, but has these 4 prongs because that's not a normal nut on there, and they're spaced specifically. So we're gonna use that. There we go. 40 foot-pounds, we got it. One more thing I should do actually is check that crank before I yank it all the way out. Doesn't feel like I have any up and down play. Like I said, everything was built well, it was just used a lot. But I don't feel any up and down play, and I think side to side is still very tight. There is a tolerance that you can actually move that crank, the rod back and forth on the crank, but this is still well within it. It's getting rebuilt anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. Now let's bust these bad boys. These aren't very tight actually. These only go to 9 foot-pounds, so really not bad. All I'm doing is taking this plate off so I can expose everything and I can get to the main nut that holds this down to the input shaft. This is another thing that'll get you, is if someone's been in there before, a lot of times I'll get into a used clutch and these will snap off right at the head. Someone's way over torqued these, just zipping them down with one of these impact guns, and bam, now you got one stuck in your clutch hub. Not fun. Move our pressure plate. Oh, looks like I'm getting a bunch of plates with it. In fact, let's take a look at these. Wow. I think I remember replacing this not that long ago, so this clutch is actually still fairly new. Those steels look good. They're not all discolored. They're still smooth. And then our fibers look really good too. They're all burnt up. That's a reusable clutch, ladies and gentlemen. But do I just keep it on the shelf as a spare? I don't know. Here is the actuator rod and bearing. I keep that together with the clutch in the side case, and now I've got to get to the main nut here. Let's get in there with a really fine one first, so I can get underneath the tab and get it moving. There we go. Whoops. Went one of the gear sets for the kicker. Let's get this other kicker gear out of here before it bounces on me by accident. There we go. Try to keep everything all together. Oh wow, am I gonna get this in one piece? No. Oh, can you believe that? Look at that. If you know, you know. That felt really good. These never come off in one piece. I'm always scraping them. So that was nice. All right, gotta find this real quick. Okay, I'm not particularly fond this model, we'll call it, of clutch holder, but it does work when I need it to. It's just I have had a problem with these things bending and doing weird stuff as I'm trying to hold on to these. So just got to make sure it's nice and tight so it doesn't slip. Hang on to that. Yep, 80 foot-pounds, all right. Sheesh. Okay. Look for the washer on the back. Still in good shape. All right. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Everything's coming together nicely here. Coming apart nicely, I should say. And there's a bearing that goes in here. I think I had put a new one in not that long ago either, but it basically sits on this collar right here. It's like a spacer collar. There's a certain depth that is, so it keeps everything spaced out correctly. But everything seems great so far. Keep the good stuff coming. Now we're gonna pull the clip out of here. Oh, there it went into the bottom end. Go figure. That's all right, I'm not too concerned. That feels nice. Really not that bad. So there's your part number for your CP piston, if you guys are curious. The rest of the piston looks great. It's just up here is all gunked up and charred. Running it stupid rich. I'll remember that next time. But otherwise, the journals and everything in here for your wrist pin looks nice and clean. Let's take a look at the wrist pin. It's really not bad. There's no grooves. I can't drag my fingernail on anything. This is all normal wear and tear, so that's good. Wasn't getting all wobbly or anything. There's our crank. So that is a Carrillo rod. I don't know if you guys can read that on there or not, but no up and down play whatsoever. That's still a very good crank. The other cool thing about these Carrillo rods is Crankworx can re-bush these. What I mean is they'll press these bushings out and you can put new ones in here. So you can actually reuse the rod. They'll just put new fresh bushings in there and you can keep reusing the rod, because these rods are about $500 or $400 a piece. So you can imagine building that with the crank. You're $600, sometimes $1,000 into a crank just putting rods and stuff together. So that's always nice to know, because I think we already did that for Nomad. And I think that's going to be the way to go. We'll rebush that rod and have everything rebuilt. Friction reduction, so basically polished. So that's going to be nice. And then we're going to balance it with that piston. Let's flip this around and then get the flywheel off too, and then I can yank everything apart. But basically I want to leave all these gears on here so I can put the jammer in to get that nut off the other side. So what you guys are seeing me doing is I'm actually putting the clutch basket back on, because it has the gear attached, so that I can put the gear jammer back on and break this nut loose with the breaker bar here. Ah, there we go. There we go. Now I can pull that all back off, set it off to the side again. Another little tool you'll need, again, Motion Pro, but this one's a little bit more stout than that gear jammer. It's meant to be. But your little flywheel puller, important little tool. Fun fact, by the way, both sides of the crank bolt on the far side holding all the gears and everything together, and then this side are both 17 millimeter. How about that?
Well, well, well.
Definitely want to get as many threads on as I can so I'm not stripping any. Yep, 19 millimeter. I think that is also a 19. Let's check. No, bigger. What do we have here? 22? Haha, spot on. Okay, should be able to hold this and then zip this bad boy right off. Oh yeah, like butter. Helps when you have the right tools. Keep the flywheel stuff together. Stick it. Okay. All this is a cam chain guide. I always felt like Honda designed the engine and like made it a pretty good engine design, and then as they were going through it, they found all the little stuff they never thought of, and it was just kind of an afterthought. Hey, let's make this little plate real quick to hold the cam chain in place, and then the little clips for the oil pump gear, which is made of plastic, by the way. I think in the 0405 it is a metal gear still. I don't know if they were just trying to save weight and things like that, but a lot of little stuff in here that just kind of seemed like an afterthought. Okay. Good. Other half of the cam chain guide. This is a fairly new cam chain too, so I know it's not stretched. That's still in good shape. We're going to be able to reuse a lot of parts from this thing, so let's flip it around and get the other side out. Okay, so this guy's loose. Again, 17 mil on this side, but it also has an Allen head, so when you're doing timing and things like that, you can just stick a little Allen key through the hole. There's a cap that you can pull off the side, and you can just stick an 8mm Allen in there to rotate the engine around. Or if this gets stripped for some reason, you can use that. All right, now I'll show you guys what I'm talking about, all these gears. This would get reused with the kicker, but you get rid of all of this. Here's your massive starter clutch. There's just a lot there. And then this goes on the far inside, that would stay there. But there's a steel sleeve that goes in instead with the kicker engines and takes a place of all of this. I mean, this weighs a few pounds. So that's a lot of rotating mass you can get rid of, faster revs, things like that. It's probably why Randy Savage revs so quickly. Keep these together. I want to reuse those. I'm going to start separating the things I don't want to reuse. So this, your little starter reduction gear, you can get rid of those. Now we're going to start speeding up a little bit. Get the shift shaft out. Still straight. Excellent. A little gunked up, but not bad. Now for the counterbalancer. So on the 2006 Plus, this is all one piece. On the 0405s, you actually have two separate pieces that get bolted together onto your counterbalancer. Just some more of the changes they made. And then the counterbalancer, you actually have to rotate to get it out. So it should be facing this way when you pull it out, because if you look here, there's like a little relief cut. You can see it has like an odd shape to it. Well, the inside of the case is shaped the same way, so you actually have to rotate it to slide it out. And we'll keep all this together. And here is a little guide. Don't forget that, because that's going to go back in. This basically keeps this from sliding out into your clutch basket and that gear. There. That comes with it. Collar stays together. It's all a spacer. And then there's your transmission. So here's your input shaft. There's the rest of the transmission. And your counter shaft. Ooh, don't forget this. This goes around your shift shaft. A little washer right there. So here's some of the stuff I was talking about. All these little bearing retainer plates. There's a ton of them. There's some in here. They're on the inside of the crank journal in here. You've got those bolts right there holding little tabs on. There's some on the other side. There's more in the transmission. There's a ton of those little tabs hanging around where they're holding bearings in. Not on every single model. I think in the 0405 everything was press fit on the far side, but Honda started adding all the tabs when they realized they might have had a problem with bearings popping out and then running into the crank. I don't know if that was the issue or not, but it just seems like a lot of things were just added after the fact when they built the engine. Maybe it was premeditated. I don't know. We are definitely taking all of these starter gears out. Extra weight.
Pump them one way. Let's go. I want to beat them.
Extra gears to drive. Extra stuff to go wrong. I want that. But I believe this one up here, I will have to put the bolt back, because otherwise you get excess crank pressure onto this side, because this bolt hole goes straight through into the crank. Short one. And this guy. There we go. Look at that. Sheesh. There's more gears we can take out and not have sitting around. Shift drum, shifter assembly. You got all your shifter pawls in here. This is gonna have to yank out, so I can actually pull the shift drum out. I want to pull this out as one full piece, because there are little springs. You just hear that click. There they are. The actual shifter pawls, the buttons, and there's springs in there. All that is free floating. So I want to make sure I don't just toss this around and then lose all that, because this all has to go together just like this and back in there. It sits around in here, and that's what you hear all the clicking, is these. 12 millimeter, and it's torqued to 16 foot-pounds. So we're gonna yank that off now. You guys will hear it. There, some more of that clicking. That's this guy right here. It's a little spring-loaded wheel. That basically, that's all where the notches are back there. It's what you feel with your foot, that tells you what gear you're in. So I just got it out of neutral. Going all the way up. There we go. Now. Oh, jeez. They tell you to use a lot of Loctite. But for good reason, because that thing's got to stay locked in or you're going to really screw something up. There we go. And this is what everything pivots on right there. So that entire assembly pivots right on that bolt. And then it holds this little drum, there it goes, in there. So that's the actual shift drum the rest of the way in there. I can get rid of this, and then we can flip it over and do the other side. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, so I'm actually gonna set this directly on the bench. We're gonna move these wood blocks, because I don't really need those anymore. Oh, they are so oily. Ugh. It's a messy job. That's also a reason why I covered the whole workbench in some of this steel sheeting, because it helps me clean up a lot easier. This side, now you're gonna see all the bolts that basically hold everything together. I still gotta pull this because there's bolts down there, but basically everything that's holding the case together comes out from this side. Let's get this guy. Let's reverse it. There we go. You only need just a little bit. There. Don't go nuts cranking that little circlip out, because it will bend. Then you'll have a heck of a time getting a new one in the mail and then putting it in, or trying to bend that one back. Save that little drive pin. There we go. All this is an oiled pump drive gear. I haven't seen one fail, knock on wood. Now you'll see all these bolts in here, these ones, all the silver heads on there, those are the ones that actually hold the cases together internally from inside the engine here. This one serves dual purpose. This one actually holds. This one also holds the oil pickup hold down tab. You guys remember, I don't know if I pointed out to you, I think I did it in the Cyborg video, but Jeff Strick sells upgraded ones that are thicker, because you guys will see it on this one. These are prone to breaking. And then you got a little piece of an oil pump tab, or the oil pickup tab. You got a piece of it floating around down here. This one was broken once. I found the piece. But you can see that's supposed to look like that side. So that one broke off. I found it, was still able to use this because it still holds down the oil pickup, but we're gonna toss this one. We're gonna use one of Jeff's upgraded ones. And then be nice popping that out. It's got rubber right there that helps guide it in. And then you've got another rubber chunk right there. Basically all that hold down tab is doing is holding onto that ring. It's on that tube. And then these are actually for the tabs holding down the bearing on the inside of the case here, but we'll get the rest of these. And those are in there. Those are really in there. Keep note too, because some of these have copper washers on them, because they might be sealing up through a coolant passage or an oil passage. Boy, these things are really cracking loose, eh? There we go. Then one of the last things, make sure this comes loose. You got an oil drain bolt right here for your transmission. Do not forget to pull that, or you're going to be fighting yourself, because that does run through all the way to the other case and holds onto the other half of the case, so it actually pinches everything together. Okay, got all the center case bolts out, but something I want to show you guys just to help yourself stay organized and keep everything a little bit more tidy. Plus, it helps me remember where everything goes. I just cut out a piece of cardboard, labeled the center case bolts outer, so I know what pattern they go in based on the shape of the engine, and then the inner bolts all go in here in order, and then your trans drain bolt, just so keeps those organized, because you definitely want those to go back in the same place. They're all kinds of different lengths. You can see they're all over the place. And it helps you keep the washers that I was talking about, those copper washers, on the ones that need them. So just something to think about. But we're about to split the cases now. We're gonna pop everything apart. I gotta clean some of the tools off the bench, and then we're gonna yank this thing apart and basically set the crank to the side. But we are at 1 hour, 35 minutes. Not terrible, sitting here going through things, talking to you guys, going back and forth to the house. I'll take that. Ooh, don't forget this. Your little actuator arm here for your clutch. All right, final stretch. Last thing I gotta do is just separate the cases, and one thing I like to do is give it a little tap on the crank, get a little gap going here between the cases, and then really pop them loose. They're also sitting on some dowels, so they might be pretty tight right now. It's been years. Let's give them a little persuasion. There we go. Just cracked loose. I definitely don't want to try to drive a wedge in there, because then you end up bending the case and hurting that aluminum there, denting it where the gasket's supposed to pinch, and then you have gaps there, so you get leaks. Definitely don't want to do that. Okay, it looks like I wasn't quite done with those chunks of wood yet, but here is that pry bar. So if you gap one side out too fast, the other side stays pinched, and it kind of seizes that dowel pin in there. There's a little notch right here that you can get a pry bar on without getting into that little gap there. But we have it separated. Basically, all the blocks of wood are is to space this thing out from the workbench so that the end of the crank isn't buried in there. All right, pull a little seal out. It can stay over here. All right, left case half. Crank. Now, it looks like the crank got hot, but part of that is this thing was welded and trued last time I had it built. So let's put this crank to the side. Let's get this off to the side. I need a bigger workbench. So what you guys are seeing is the output shaft, all our gears in here, a little spacer there, but down here are our pins and shift forks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually try to work that pin loose so we can pull our shift forks. Now I like to keep these, oh wow, those actually look really good. Huh. I like that. I like to keep the pins in there so I know which shift fork goes where. When you do enough of these, you kind of pull them apart and you go, oh, that's kind of obvious. There's really only a certain place those can go. Otherwise, they don't fit around the gear itself in those collars. But it's still nice to keep them organized, like keeping them on the pin. So pull that out. Pull our other shift fork, which also looks really good. Honda 80 weight doing its job. All right, let's keep those together. And now we can pull the rest of the gears. There we go. Put our input shaft down over there. Now we can take a look at the rest of it. Make sure we have no serious wear marks. Oh yeah, like right there. You guys might be able to see that. We got some wear marks here. The actual dogs themselves look fine. They've definitely rounded off a little bit right there on the gear itself. But overall, everything still looks good. Nothing horribly mangled. The gears look pretty good themselves. I'll keep everything together up here. And then all these bearings are going to get replaced anyway. You can feel this one's just, it's okay. It's not really chunky or anything, but it's all going to get new bearings throughout. Doesn't matter. Might as well start completely fresh. But honestly, everything looks really good. Found the circlip for the piston. There. Ha! Ta-da! All right. That is a full disassembly. I took quite a bit of time. We are at 1 hour, 55 minutes. So, not too bad. You guys remember that little oil hold down tab I was talking about? There's the one I pulled out. And here is the upgraded tab. You can get these from Jeff over at Oregon Coast there. But check that out. This is what it should look like. This is what it always ends up looking like. This was, again, another afterthought I figured Honda just came up with, but check this out. You can see just how thick that boy is.
That's a thick ass boy.
So that's the one we're going to be putting back in there. As for this guy, damn it. Well, there you have it. That's a full disassembly of a 2008 Honda TRX450R engine. It was roughly 1 hour and 55 minutes, just under 2 hours. That's a lot of talking, a lot of moving around, adjusting camera and going in and dealing with stuff in the house. But it really isn't that bad. I'll show you. This is your entire engine laid out right here on a 6 foot long workbench. Now some of that, I have extras. As you can see, I have 3 cam towers over there. So I'm spoiled for choice a little bit here. But I have extra parts for this thing. Transmission actually looked pretty good. There were a little bit of wear marks in there from the dogs and things. That's dropping clutch in different gears and things like that. But otherwise the transmission doesn't look too bad. The crank was pretty good. The piston looked really crusty on top, but there was no heat underneath. That was just excess fuel and gunk in there. I think some of that might be possibly some oil. Not sure. The cylinder looked really good. But other than the piston being gunked up on top, everything else looked really nice in there. I'm pretty happy with the transmission. Looks good, but I've got a little something up my sleeve. I have the crank I just pulled out. It looks like heat marks, but as you can see by the base of the rod right here, there was no heat from the rod or the bearing in there, and it turns nice and free and smooth. That was from welding and truing the pin in the crank. But I also have another OEM crank sitting here. And as you can see, very clean, worthy donor, just in case I need it. But I'm gonna send that to get rebuilt, basically rebush the rod, new bearings, polish, and balance that. But I also have a transmission in a box. I have a whole nother transmission. I also have some of the trouble gears, which is 3rd and 4th gear in these 06 Plus TRXs. They've been known to go like just blow up, so you disintegrate some gears. I do have those. Sparks also sells some hardened gears, but I'm taking this transmission and I'm getting it treated and polished at Hikinian Race Engines. He's all the way up in New Hampshire, and he does a full treatment. We're cryo treating it. We're gonna polish it and we're gonna put it right back in. So this thing will be nice, smooth shifting, strong, should last forever. The crank will be polished, trued, it'll be welded and balanced, so that will run nice and smooth. And we're gonna have some nice light components on this thing. Should be a real nice ripper, should rev really quick, which is what I'm looking for. I really enjoy that. Makes a very lively engine. But other than that, the rest of it looks really good to reuse. We're gonna send the head. I didn't see any signs of what I was worried about. I was worried about, let me just prop this up so you guys can see. These heads are known to crack right in here in the webbing between all the valves here. And there was a slight crack, but talking to Jeff, he said, don't worry about it. Yours isn't significant enough to get crazy, but I do think I had some coolant starting to leak through here. So he can fix that. He can cut and weld these things up or find another head, whatever I gotta do. I really like the porting that Jeff does, but as you can see, there might've been some coolant making its way in there. But we're gonna send this head to get a full workup. It's been a long time since this head has had anything done to it. It's been around for a long time. And Jeff was the original one to have his hands in it, so I'm gonna send it right back to him. Let him do his magic. I'm sure the valves are fine, the springs are probably fine, retainers, things like that, because it didn't even need shimming yet. So the valves haven't really stretched. Looking forward to getting that all cleaned back up so I can put it back together. And I think that cylinder is good to go almost. I'm just gonna clean it up, maybe a slight hone. I don't think I have to. Everything looks so good in there. Basically, I can reuse everything I have, and we can start getting everything built for that bad boy. Farewell, my old friend. I'll be able to use the brackets off here, have the CDI box, radiator, overflow bottle, fins, all kinds of stuff. I got all kinds of things that I can reuse, which is great. So most of it's gonna go right back on. Anyways, as you guys can see, it's a little bit of a tedious process, but it's not that bad. This is exactly how I learned to build these engines, was I started pulling it apart slowly, piece by piece. Really, as long as you pull it apart, keep it organized, you can dig into this thing too. It's really not that bad. There's so many pieces, you get so used to it, you start to understand where everything goes and it makes sense. It's just a big puzzle. Pull it apart, put it back together the way that you pulled it apart. I don't know. So for all you guys and girls, if you want to do it, it's not that bad. I hope you guys got something out of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to keep pushing forward with this thing. I'm going to send some parts out. Don't know how long it's going to take to get to me, but in the meantime, hopefully some suspension stuff shows up. Hopefully I can go on some more rides, maybe kill some time, but I will see you guys next week in another video.